Hey there, and welcome to today's daily premium newsletter for March 3rd. We end this week up overall by nearly 40 billion. This is some consolation given that last week we were almost completely bearish, but the market volume still remains thin and price action is slow. One of the biggest stories this week was the SEC issuing subpoenas to the largest US-based ICOs. The regulator apparently wants to have insight into the mechanisms employed by ICOs in pre-sales leading up to public crowd sales. This comes right after the news that the total funds raised by ICOs in February has fallen 55% compared to January. Clearly, we're starting to see a shift in the market as ICOs are beginning to anticipate the coming regulations. This was all but confirmed when SEC Chairman Jay Clayton said earlier in February, "I believe every token I've seen is a security," despite ICOs trying to label their tokens as a utility token and not a security. While we're likely still far away from actual legislation for handling ICOs and anything related to crypto as a whole, uncertainty is the bane of a free market and will likely continue to limit confidence in crowd sales. As we discussed in length earlier this week, we heavily disagree with the comments made by Bill Gates, who said that cryptocurrencies were being used to facilitate the purchases of illicit drugs such as fentanyl. While there's a number of things that are inaccurate or incorrect about that sentiment, our chief concern is the tautology, the repeated idea that Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies are the tools of the dark web and criminals. Perhaps in your own experience when discussing cryptocurrencies with friends and family, you found that they know about them, but the only belief or knowledge they have is what you could have used to describe Bitcoin back in 2011. Back then, Bitcoin was limited in use, and Bitcoin was used for illicit drugs through portals such as the Silk Road. It seems those perceptions are hard to kill, even as crypto has entered a new era. Some people will never be convinced of the potential, and that's bound to happen with any new technology. Know anyone who still doesn't have a cell phone or use the internet? As we discussed on Thursday, Bank Frick in Liechtenstein has started selling major cryptocurrencies to their customers and actually selling the assets themselves. This is important as they handle all the elements that average investors would rather not touch: asset management, security, and transfer. What's also important is this is one of the first banks that actually sells cryptocurrency, not a certificate or binary option. We believe that this will become a growing trend, but will be slow at first. To that end, a number of banks have come out saying that cryptocurrencies are a direct threat to their business model. Bank of America, Chase, and now Goldman Sachs have all cited cryptocurrencies as directly competing against them if they gain widespread adoption. Adding to the growing cacophony of concern, Daniel Masters, a former high-flying JP Morgan trader turned cryptocurrency fund manager, says banks have absolutely failed to innovate in any way, shape, or form, and now they're paying the price. What I do need to stress through all of this is that crypto isn't trying to break banks. It's a nice side effect that these institutions, which have been deemed too big to fail, are feeling the heat, but crypto isn't about better banking or lower fees or being faster than Visa. It's about peaceful social consensus. Of course, monopolies protected by a forceful state would have never invented cryptocurrencies because it would have undermined their power. When it comes down to it, crypto is about rebalancing the entire power structure between banks, the financial sector as a whole, the state, protected industries, and citizens themselves. Of course, the rebuttal to that is that people will look at early Bitcoin backers who are multimillionaires now, or they'll look at something like my recent video on masternodes and say, isn't it just one group of rich people replacing another group? How does that change anything? It's a good point, but I think it's important to stress that we're not even close to the tipping point here. The reason people made millions on Bitcoin was because they had to go through some of the most bleak periods in crypto history. The Silk Road getting shut down and Mt. Gox getting hacked made the last 2 months look quite trivial in retrospect. So there's an element that your investment could absolutely go to zero here. That being said, investment in crypto doesn't necessarily mean desiring more fiat currency, but wanting more purchasing power in the future. Believing that crypto you buy today with fiat will have the capability of buying you more goods in the future relative to the amount of fiat you might have held otherwise. Crypto can enable consensus on value possession and transfer, which it needs to have to be relevant. Those that understand that peaceful consensus is significant will be more inclined to hold long term, waiting until we hit that tipping point in crypto functions as a real currency, rather than cashing out in the short term as others will do. It's important to note that consensus with currencies is just one use case. Networks such as Ethereum enable consensus on data, whereas networks like Bitcoin are restricted to mere value transfer and ownership, which is why the paradigm of crypto has shifted in the past year and people like Bill Gates do not see it while Chase and Goldman fear it. Lastly, this week we saw Vladimir Putin endorse cryptocurrencies. He said that economies benefit from being industrially and technologically diverse. Cryptocurrencies and blockchain in general is an emerging industry with lots of use cases, and it would make sense for Russia to adopt it in order to future-proof its own economy. Putin stated that the Stone Age did not end because of a lack of stones, but because new technologies had appeared. What's interesting to us is the potential geopolitical implications of cryptocurrency being endorsed by Russia. Would adversaries such as the United States endorse blockchain proliferation because they wouldn't want to be seen as lagging behind the Russian state technologically? It's a compelling narrative to consider. So with that, I'll turn it over to Doc. Have a great weekend.
Hey folks, it's Doc with a ReadySetCrypto Weekend Report. I'm going to do a little bit of a hybrid report here. We're going to go through the top 10 of crypto, and then I'm going to go to the Tier 1 and Tier 2 holdings that we have as part of ReadySetCrypto that are not part of the top 10. And then I will go into the new ads, the 3 new ads that we have: ELA, HPB, and CPC. Now, just to give you an idea, when I'm recording this, there's about 3 hours left in the UTC day on Saturday. So just to let you know, I mean, by the time that you receive this, any number of things could be changed by that point. So let's get started off with Bitcoin right off the bat. Bitcoin is actually showing exactly what I had hoped it would. Now we'll see whether or not it gets going from here. So you can see this zone. We popped up here from this descending pattern. We broke out to the upside, formed what is a higher high, higher low. I'd like to see that confirmed by printing a new higher high, and that has got to come at about, well, it's just going to be below 12,000. It's going to be around 11,695, 696 or so. So what we should see if this breakout is real, so it's definitely above that descending trend line, so this is all good. We're seeing all green lights here. But what we are going to have to see for this to be a real breakout is some volume. There's got to be a disagreement of price in that area, and we need to see volume that's going to burst through that level and catch anybody that's setting up short or setting up with stops or anything like that at that level. It's got to get them to buy that back so we get that sort of explosive move off of there, and then that's going to attract a lot of attention. If the price does get above 12,000, you're going to see a lot of the financial press, again, starting to pump Bitcoin and say, hey, guess what? It's not dead anymore. Let's all get into Bitcoin. And so we're going to need to see that retail participation coming back into this again. So again, that's what I'd like to see happen. And I always try to be very, very cautious of applying my own bias in terms of what I want to see happen versus what could happen. What could happen here is, worst case scenario is the price comes up here to make a lower high, and then guess what happens? It fails at this point, and then this becomes just a larger time frame lower high. That could happen. And to bring that up, you have to look at the weekly chart. You'd have to look at the weekly chart here. Let's expand that out so you can see this a little bit better. So if this pumps up here and forms a lower high and then rolls over, that's still going to be just in this big pattern, this big descending downtrend on the weekly chart. So again, we're coming to a very important pivot point here, which is just below 12,000. If it's able to break above there, then we should be green light, but it will all depend on what kind of volume that we see this breakout with. Here's the number 2 coin, Ethereum. Ethereum is running into what's known as a Bollinger Squeeze. So what you'll see happen here is that these Bollinger Bands, so think about what the Bollinger Bands are. First of all, this is a statistical reading. And the Bollinger Bands represent, so these are the pink lines here, they represent 2 standard deviations, plus minus 2 standard deviations from a moving average. So really doesn't matter what the moving average here is. It just tries to approximate what the price is over the last trailing end number of bars. I believe this is a 20-period moving average. And that is correct. There it is, right up there, 20. So it samples the last 20 bars, and that is the average of the last 20 bars. And then there's 2 standard deviations plus, 2 standard deviations minus from there. And what we were seeing is the bands will be, if you have big candles and big movements, then the bands will, those 2 standard deviations of price movement will be really, really far apart. But when things go to sleep like this, then we get a Bollinger Band squeeze. A Bollinger Band squeeze. Now, here's the analogy that I like to use with these. If you've ever handled an orange pit, inside of an orange, They're very slimy, and if you squeeze on them too fast, they will come flying out of your fingers. In fact, you could probably get one to fly halfway across the room if you squeeze it hard enough. And this is what happens to the price. As the squeeze occurs in here, the price goes dormant, it goes dormant, and what's happening here, you'll also see the choppiness index get really high. And what's happening is the spring is being wound up tighter and tighter and tighter until it just can't stand the pressure anymore, and the price will come flying out of this pattern. Now, which way will it go? Which way will it go? We've seen this occur several times. Here's a Bollinger Squeeze on Ethereum way back here, and the price actually squeezed to the upside. Let's bring it back a little bit further here. Let's bring it back to some of these other ones. Here's another beautiful Bollinger Squeeze that we had back in November. So Ethereum has been doing this quite often. Sometimes is that you'll see the squeeze coming along and all of a sudden it just, boom, it's gone. Right? So we've seen this squeeze before on Ethereum. Here's another beautiful squeeze that happened here. And this was around the May timeframe, May of 2017. So last year, Bollinger Squeeze, boom, there it goes. And that's kind of what we're looking for here. There is no prediction. You don't know which way that orange pit is going to go, do you? You have no idea. There's so much pressure being cooked up in there, pounds per square inch in your fingers against that orange pit, and it's going to come flying out of there. You cannot control the direction. So while I hope that this breaks above on big volume, above this descending trend line, and we see Ethereum break out, the reason that I hope that is this is one of our tier 1 holdings. Ethereum, we are very eager to see what the future holds for Ethereum. But it can go either way, so we're not going to be surprised or disappointed if it ends up first going to the downsides. In fact, some of the best slingshot moves that you'll ever see are ones that go in the opposite direction, create huge, massive disappointment, and then boom, they're gone. So be prepared on Ethereum. What you might want to do, and this is not difficult to do here because we have such a small range, is that you can come along here and you can do something like this. You can add an alert and you can email yourself in case of an alert. You can say, email me if Ethereum gets above that level. Or what you can also do is you can say, email me if Ethereum goes below this level. And so either way, I'm going to get notified if Ethereum breaks out of that small term range. Now, that's just an intraday. There's not a closing level behind that or anything like that. That's just me seeing Ethereum USD crossing below 836.01 or above 898. That should do it. Continuing with the top 10, number 3 is Ripple. There's really not much to say here. We have the same kind of thing going on with Ripple as Ethereum. We have the same thing going on here. Bitcoin Cash is Ethereum. It's just stuck in a range, not much going on. Here's Litecoin. Litecoin did the little breakout. Hey, airdrop. Here comes a hard fork kind of thing. And right now what it's doing is the same thing. It's running within a small little consolidation pennant. All right, here is Neo. Neo is a little bit of a disappointment on the last 3-4 days after what was a really nice breakout. And again, what I'm hoping here is that we're not turning into bear flag time here. So again, be careful. Don't let your bias get in the way and give you a lens that's too opaque for you to see what's actually happening. So right now, what I want to make sure is that this doesn't turn out to be a bear flag and then breaks down through there. That could still happen. We could still have that happen. Larger time frame, that doesn't necessarily provide the death knell to Neo. This could still be just trading within a very large bull flag that we're just going to have to be patient with until this is ready to break out. Until it's ready to break out, until demand exceeds supply, we're going to see these little false breakouts where everybody gets excited for a day or two and there's just no follow-up buying on it. You can see that. We're not getting any volume here. That's the problem. There's no volume, not like what we had back in the fall. Even in the winter, nothing is going on right now. Everything is very quiet. Everything is very quiet because we're tracing out a bottom. We're hitting that point of maximum adversity for most people where they bought into Bitcoin or some other coin back in December, and now they've just about given up, and this is where things start to move. Remember, trends Don't get going until all the dead wood is shed first. You've got to get rid of all the dead weight in a market first before it has room to move. Continuing with the top 10, here is Cardano. Nothing to say here. Here is Stellar Lumen. Same thing going on. And I'll finish out. No, this is number 9. Is EOS. Again, very little to say here. The bands are squeezing in. And probably the best looking coin today, the best looking chart today is actually, of all things, Monero. So Monero has broken out from the descending trend line. So it's already done that. Printed a higher low, broken out to a higher high on pretty decent volume. This is what we're looking for. This is the good stuff here. That is confirming the move. So a lot of energy here, a lot of energy for this thing to break out. The coil was all set to go on this one and building up a lot of energy on the chop index, and boom, up we go. So that is good. So this is maybe the best looking coin of the top 10 right now, is, believe it or not, Monero. Now what I don't like is I don't like this little shooting star kind of gravestone doji looking candle that we have up here. That means that it tried to push up higher and got sold into. People taking profits, yet there's no exhaustion showing right now. So that from a technical perspective, it doesn't have to do that. So we're getting very close to the former highs of Monero back in the December timeframe. So I personally don't have any Monero. If it's able to withstand this uptrend, then I may consider adding a little fixed risk position of Monero to my account. All right, so what I want to do now is I want to switch over to the ReadySetCrypto holdings that are in Tier 1, Tier 2 that I have not already gone over as part of the top 10. And of those, Omizigo, and again, all the potential in the world, this one was looking great. It's broken out from 16.7 or so, and it's gotten as high as 20.5, almost 21, and it's faded since that point. So is this another bear flag setting up? That I don't know, but we'll have to watch this. If this undercuts and goes back down in the pattern, that's a very bad sign for that to occur. Again, a lot of energy. There's no shortage of energy for this thing to break out. What I did not see was any volume on this breakout. Unlike Monero, there's no real volume driving this run. It just sort of drifted higher, and right now people are taking profits. So watch this carefully for a potential failure on Omizigo. Here's Navcoin. Navcoin, it's in a range and the bands are squeezing and it's broken the descending trend line. So that's all good. There's just no volume in this guy at all. So there's no excitement, no volume. A lot of energy. We'll see whether or not Navcoin is able to do anything with it. Next up is the Binance coin. The Binance coin getting cheap, right? Maybe worth picking up here pretty soon. I don't have any of this in my own portfolio in the Binance coin, so may consider some of that at some point soon. Modem, again, nothing to talk about here. This is a chart just continuing to work down. Notice the volume though. The volume is starting to get interesting though. Big volume on big green candles. We'll see whether or not that big volume can come in and break this descending pattern up to the upside. Okay, so some of the coins that Mav has added lately is ELA. And as I search on my TradingView app, I'm looking at ELA, and there's nothing there. So we're going to have to go hunting for that one. We're going to go to high performance blockchain, putting that in, HBB, there's nothing there. And lastly, we'll look at CPC. There we go. Capricorn actually has something here. So we'll look at CPC first, and then we'll go hunting for the other one. So Capricorn, USD, boys at a Bollinger Squeeze, not much volume here. This is an inexpensive coin, about 60 cents, right? 50 to 60 cents right now after the excitement. This was, just the bubble that we had back here in December, January. So this was going for as high as 260 before it's gone down to about 60 cents. So looking for a catalyst, obviously, to break this one out. There's nothing from a charting perspective that really shows any edge at this time. There's no volume. Okay, I'm going to switch over to Coinigy now. We tried everything that we could with just the standard TradingView app. So now Coinigy, and we have two left that we have to find. One of them is ELA, and there's nothing there for ELA. So we're going to have to go over to CoinMarketCap in a minute. So now we need to switch to high performance blockchain. And guess what? Out here at KuCoin or QCoin, however you pronounce it, there's our pair. Okay, so this has only been around for just a small period of time here. High performance blockchain, at least as it's being shown on KuCoin. So this doesn't give me much to work with. So what I might try doing here is I'm going to go over to coinmarketcap.com and search over here for high performance blockchain. So we're going to go over to high performance blockchain, and you can see kind of this one has been around for a little while. I'm not sure why the Coinigy is only showing just a few days of data out here. So again, you can see the problems with, you know, just the immaturity. So if we look at that's all the data that we have goes back to early January. So now what we can do is we can go out to markets, and we can see for high performance blockchain we actually have BBox. So we already showed the KuCoin one. So evidently KuCoin has only listed that coin since late February. So now we can go out to BBox and look at their version of this. And this is going to come straight from a 15-minute chart. So we can look at this one and see that, yes, this one's been around for a little while. Through the end of December, that's been on BBox. And again, we had that big rally up here, and right now it's just kind of staying in a very small range, just like every other coin. My conclusion from this, looking at this, is that we're just range bound on high performance blockchain right now. No edge on the chart is being shown. So now for our final coin, we're going to go to ELA once again, and this is Elastos. And what can we find out here with Elastos? Well, we're going to go down to markets again. We can see that this one's been around since perhaps the beginning of February, and is just pretty much range bound like everything else. Let's see who covers this. And right now there's a broker by the name of, I'm going to completely mash this up here. I'll say Huobi. Okay, somebody please correct me on that. And so you can see that this has just been around for a few days. And right now it's actually in a little bit of an uptrend. An overall uptrend with higher highs, higher lows so far, and currently going through a dip right now. So this is Elastos. Again, very little that we can see on this, just with very little sample size. So this is probably one of the reasons why Mav has gotten into this. And interesting that this Huobi Pro is using TradingView. Again, this is by far the number one API version for cryptocurrency. Will that always be that way? Not till the big boys get into it. But for right now, they're getting a great advantage by charting crypto. All right, folks, that is it for the weekend report. You guys have a great weekend. We'll be back here Monday evening with the next report. We'll see if we get any movement between now and then. Let's hope so. Take care, folks.